Welcome to our third video where we are looking at the games that we have been giving away as part of the literacy game bundles in Hartlepool. Been giving these out to families through local schools. And this is the third of four videos that are showing, explaining why we picked particular games to help with literacy and showing how to play them. Now, this next game, Braggart, is actually perhaps of the four we've picked is perhaps the longest, perhaps the most complicated, but not too much. And we'll show you how to simplify this if you think it may be a little too complex for people at home. But it's a competitive game. You are attempting to collect points, and you collect points by creating the best both. So you have to imagine that it's a medieval fantasy setting and you spend a whole day out adventuring, getting in all kinds of escapades, and you come back to the tavern and you are attempting to out-brag everybody else. You're attempting to show all the other adventurers that your adventures were actually the best, the most death-defying. Although sometimes, unfortunately, things don't always go your way, and it turns out you were less heroic than you thought you would be. Now, as I show you how to play Braggart, it's good to think about a few things, a few reasons why we have chosen this game. First of all, it helps us to understand a story structure. Each story will have at least two elements. It will have a deed, it will have something that the hero has done, and it will have a foe. It will have something that the hero has overcome, or actually in some cases perhaps not. Perhaps it's something that the hero has succumbed to, something that has defeated him. But at its simplest, a story is just perhaps a person or an action against something else. But you can also add in scenes and results. These are two other cards. They're optional, you don't have to use them. But if you do, you are setting a scene, you're providing a place that the story's happened, you're providing a thing that happens in the story, a thing that is against what's happening, a foe, and you're also providing a result, a conclusion to the story. And this could either mimic what children often use in schools, which is the story mountain, or you could see each of these as a scene within the story mountain. But either way, if we understand more about how authors piece together stories, how they structure a story, then when we come to read a story, the whole narrative makes a little bit more sense. Although I said at the beginning as well, we were focusing on comprehension, on understanding words, rather than helping children decode words. This one is a little bit different, and this has some unusual words because of the medieval setting. It also has some made-up words that are really going to challenge our phonics skills as well. And as with anything that involves reading, it's going to perhaps help us learn some new vocabulary if there's things in here that we haven't come across before. But what we particularly like is it has some quite colourful language. It has a kind of humour to it, and it uses figurative language. That's that kind of language where the words and the phrases are not necessarily meant to be taken literally, but they're just trying to illustrate something with kind of flowery language or language that paints a picture without being too literal. So we will come on to some of those in just a second as I have a look at how to play this. So, first of all, we have a deck of cards. Now, if you think this game might be a little too long, and actually we generally find it isn't particularly, but it is 30 to 40 minutes. So if you think that's going to tax some attention spans, then the easiest thing is to make sure it's well shuffled, because you don't want to accidentally take out all of the kind of green cards or all of the red cards and leave the game unbalanced. But you simply just cut the deck in half if you would like it to be a short game. You deal everybody who is playing 5 cards. They get a hand of cards that are secret. Nobody else can see them. You decide who is going first. So we're going to pretend that we're playing a 2-player game, and here the person on the top of the board is going to go first. And the first thing you do every round is you have a drafting phase. You put 1 card per person in the middle of the table. And starting with the person who's going first, they choose a card. So our first player is going to choose that card. Our second player is left with nothing but that card. So that happens every single round. Now, the first player has a choice. They can either play a story using cards that they've got in their hand, or they can go to the bar. Going to the bar means that you basically miss a round and you take 3 cards from here, 3 cards from the deck to replenish your hand. Now, our first player, at the beginning of the game, they have some good cards to make a story from. So they are going to make a basic story. They're going to say that in their boast, the most heroic thing they did today was hid in terror from Simon the Lonely Ogre. Now, these numbers at the top tell us just how heroic this story is. So this one is worth 5 points, 2 for the deed, 3 for the foe. Every story has to have a green and a red card. Every story has to have a deed and a foe. Player 2 is going to be able to do a little bit better than this. So when they went out adventuring, they having infiltrated the enemy's camp, I heroically slew a demon from the deepest pits of hell, and then I hid in my house crying. So player 1 scored 5 points. Player 2 scores 3, 12, 21, 22 points. So because player 2 got the most points, they keep all of these cards and they put them into a scoring pile. At the very end of the game, you take all of the cards out of your scoring pile and you add up the number in the bottom, and that tells you how many points you get. And the number at the bottom relates to the number at the top. So the higher the points value of the card, the more points it will score you at the end of the game. Player 2 didn't win, they lost. So everybody else who's in the round that didn't win, if they played a story, they can choose one of the cards to put into their scoring pile, and the other one is just discarded. So player 2 has a healthy score pile. I think I swapped my numbers around halfway through. Player 2 has a healthy scoring pile. Player 1 at the moment just has 1. Because player 2 won that round, they are going to go first next round. So we do the same thing again. Now this time we have some slightly different cards. The black liar card and a ploy card. We'll see how they work in a second, but a purple ploy card you can play at the start of your turn if you want to play a story. The black cards are something that you play on somebody else's turn, usually to mess with them a little bit. Like this liar card is where you're claiming, well, I was there and I saw that you didn't slay a dragon, but actually you slayed an angry looking chicken. Player 2 is going to take the liar card. Player 1 is going to take the ploy card. Now, player 2 doesn't have any cards to make a story with. Like, these are the only 2 cards they have in their hand. So they are just going to go to the bar for this round. They're just going to collect 1, 2, 3 cards. Player 1 does want to play a story, but he's also going to play his ploy card, his purple card. And this says, take 3 cards from the top of the deck. You can have a look at them and then discard 1. Keep 1 and discard 2. So he's going to keep 1 and put the other 2 in a discard pile, and he gets rid of that into a discard pile. So player 2 wasn't able to do anything. They went first. Player 1 is now going to have their turn telling a story. So they're going to set a scene, and they're going to say, in the Forsaken Temple. I mean, that's a word that, Forsaken is a word that may need some Googling to understand. I disguised myself as the foulest of all dragons. And now, a painting of these exploits hangs above the king's fireplace. So at the moment, 2-player game, there's only those 2 stories. Player 2 went first but couldn't make a story. Player 1 has made an epic tale. However, player 2, you might remember, picked up that liar card. So they're going to say, you liar. I was there. I saw that actually you didn't disguise yourself as the foulest of all dragons. You ran screaming from the foulest of all dragons. And this card that he claims is a liar, he actually gets to keep. Player 2 gets to put that in his hand to play with. And then, so player 1 wins because he has 5, 6, 15, 21 points. Player 2 didn't play a story, so has nothing. So all of these go into the scoring pile for him. So that's it. But if you want to make this game just a little simpler, we would recommend that to start off with, you could always take out all of the black cards and all of the purple cards and purely play it with the stories. It takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but it does make it a less complex game. It also makes the deck a little smaller, so it's another way to play it a little quicker if that's going to be important. If you were just going to keep one set, the black cards are a little easier to understand how to play as well. And then finally, you could always add in the purple cards when you get more comfortable with the game. The other thing that is in the rules that you can do is if in your story you match these symbols on the bottom right, then you get to draw some extra cards at the end of your turn. So if you have 2 of them with the same symbol, so this any symbol would count as well, any of them, you could say that they're the same symbol, and if you have 2 or more, you get to draw an extra card from the draw deck at the end of your turn and add it to your hand. Again, the game plays perfectly well without that rule, if that's one too many things to keep track of. But at its most basic, this game is simply laying 2 cards to tell a story. And you could make that 3 or 4 cards if you happen to be lucky enough to have them in your hand as well to score more points. Okay. So let's just go back to why we have chosen this game. As you can see, you're having multiple opportunities to be able to create a story that might well inspire a child's own story later on and their own creative writing. It pieces together in a way that's a little bit different from how things are often done in school, but it pieces together how stories can be built up, how they can be created. Each of these little cards could become a few sentences or a paragraph in their own story. Most importantly, it's also introducing them, as I think we saw just in some of the cards we picked, that introduces children and actually adults, because some of these words are a little odd. Introduces children and adults to some new words and to some very flowery figurative language. So thank you. We have one more of these videos to come, which will be looking at how we can use story cubes. And you can see all of our different social media and websites for more information if you would like it.